name is Brianna.
And I'm Cory. Welcome to the 11 o'clock news. Today, we have a special on the Holocaust.
Our topic of the day is the Nazi rise to power. World War I ended in 1918 with a total of 37 million casualties, including 9 million dead combats. German propaganda had not prepared the nation for defeat, resulting in a sense of injured German national pride. Those military and political leaders who were responsible claimed that Germany had been stabbed in the back by its left-wing politicians, communists, and Jews.
Allies punished Germany severely. In the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was disarmed and forced to pay reparations to France and Britain for the huge cost of the war. The German Workers' Party and forerunner of the Nazi Party exposed a right-wing ideology like many similar groups of demobilized soldiers. Adolf Hitler joined this small political party in 1919 and rose to leadership through his emotional and captivating speeches.
He encouraged national pride, militarism, and a commitment to the Volk and a racially pure Germany. Hitler condemned the Jews, exploiting anti-Semitic feelings that had been in Europe for centuries. He changed the name of the party to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, called for short the Nazi Party, or NSDAP. By the end of 1920, the Nazi Party had about 3,000 members. A year later, Hitler became its official leader, or Führer.
Hitler then tried to overthrow local authorities in Munich. This was known as the Beer Hall Putsch. It had failed miserably. The Nazi Party seemed doomed to fail, and its leaders, including Hitler, were put in jail and charged with high treason. However, Hitler used the courtroom as his public trial as a way to spread his propaganda. He went on and on for hours talking down the Weimar government. By the end of the trial, Hitler had somehow managed to gain support for the courage he showed during the trial. The right-wing presiding judges sympathized with Hitler and sentenced him to only 5 years in prison, with eligibility for early parole. Hitler was released from prison after 1 year. Other Nazi leaders were given light sentences also.
Presidential hopeful reveals his cabinet.
My cabinet will be filled with honesty, integrity, and real satisfaction. 9 lives. What would you expect from a finicky president?
Vote 9 lives, a more satisfying choice.
Welcome back to the Holocaust special. Before the break, we ended on Hitler and the Nazi Party being released from jail. After Hitler was released from prison, he formally resurrected the Nazi Party. Hitler began rebuilding and reorganizing the party, waiting for an opportune time to gain political power in Germany. The Nazi Party's leader principle established Hitler as the one and only to whom party members swore loyalty until death. Final decision-making rested with him, and his strategy was to develop a highly centralized and structured party that could compete in Germany's future elections. Hitler hoped to create a bureaucracy which he envisioned as the gem of the future state.
The Nazi Party began building a mass movement. From 27,000 members in 1925, the party grew to 108,000 in 1929. The SA, or Sturmabteilung, or Stormtroopers, was the paramilitary unit of the party, a propaganda arm that became known for its strong armed tactics of street brawling and terror.
From 1925 to 1927, the Nazi Party failed to make inroads in the city, and in May 1928 it did poorly in the Reichstag's elections, winning only 2.6% of the total vote. The party shifted its strategy to rural and small-town areas and fueled anti-Semitism by calling for expropriation of Jewish agriculture property and by condemning large Jewish department stores. Party propaganda proved effective at winning over university students, veterans organizations, and professional groups, although the party became increasingly identified with the young men of the lower middle class.
Reich President Paul von Hindenburg's advisors persuaded him to invoke the Constitution's emergency presidential powers. These powers allowed the president to restore law and order in a crisis. Hindenburg created a new government made up of a chancellor and cabinet ministers to rule by emergency decrees instead of by laws passed by the Reichstag. So began the demise of the Weimar democracy.
Heinrich Brüning was the first chancellor under the new presidential system. He was unable to unify the government, and in September 1930 there were new elections. The Nazi Party won an important victory, capturing 18.3% of the total vote to make it the second largest party in the Reichstag. Hindenburg's term as president was ending in the spring of 1932. At age 84, he was reluctant to run again, but he knew that if he didn't, Hitler would win. Hindenburg won.
Germany's government remained on the brink of collapse. The SA Brownshirts, about 400,000 strong, were a part of the daily street violence. The economy was still in crisis. In the election of 1932, the Nazi Party won 37% of the Reichstag seats. Thanks to a massive propaganda campaign, for the next 6 months, the most powerful German leaders were embroiled in a series of desperate political maneuverings. Ultimately, these major players severely underestimated Hitler's political abilities.
So the question is, why did Germany go along with all of this madness? What was it that made people so accepting of the Nazi Party and their ideas? You'll find out as soon as we return.
My struggles with cats goes back to my beginnings.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Does your cat make too much noise? Try kitten mittens.
Premieres Thursday, September 17th, only on FX.
Hi, my name is Cory.
And I'm Brianna. Welcome back to our 11 o'clock news Holocaust special. Before the break, we discussed the Nazis' party rise to power and asked, why is it that Germany was so accepting of all this madness to the Nazi Party had brought about? What do you think, Cory?
Well, I personally think it was a combination of factors. First, Hitler was a master of dividing and attacking his enemies one by one. He would win over people with tempting promises while eliminating their options, leaving them helpless before him. He also effectively used lies and propaganda to deceive the public and turn them against helpless scapegoats, such as the Jews, making people relieved they were not under attack at that time and not seeing what was happening until it was too late to save themselves.
Right, I completely agree. I also think that Hitler's programs did restore national pride and relieve some of the Depression's misery. Little did people realize at the time the price they would pay and what the world would have to pay for this temporary bit of comfort.
Exactly! Another question is, what was the reasoning and explanations about the anti-Jewish legislation on pre-war Germany?
Well, in the Nazis' 25-point party program of 1920, members of the Nazi Party openly stated that they had intended on segregating the Jews from the Aryan society that they were trying to create. The law for restoration of the professional civil service was the first law to be passed that directly targeted Jews. It was used to remove Jewish people from their jobs and stated that they were politically unreliable.
Right, and also other laws were passed limiting the number of Jews that may attend public school, and even the altering what the Jews were permitted to kill for food and eat. The Nuremberg laws took the citizenship away from the Jewish people and even prevented them from the right to marry a person of German blood.
My advice to any of the Jews that were to be flee from Germany and take refuge in one of the Allied countries.
For their discriminating taste, Little Friskies introduces the new 31% high-protein dry cat food made with your cat's 6 favorite flavors: giblets and liver, country chicken, tuna, ocean fish, seafood, braised liver flavors. Friskies' exclusive process drenches every high-protein nugget with natural juices. Little Friskies.
Back, and now we have our information about the concentration camps. The term concentration camp refers to a camp in which people are detained or confined, usually under harsh conditions and without regard to legal norms of arrest and imprisonment that are acceptable in a constitutional democracy.
After the rise to power, the Nazis focused on eliminating their political enemies as quickly as possible. Within a short period of time, a legal foundation was created through which they could eliminate the personal freedoms granted by the Weimar Constitution. A decree by Reich President Paul von Hindenburg on the 4th of February 1933 granted the Nazis the power to detain individuals for the protection of the people. Such detention was initially granted only for a limited amount of time.
Just weeks after Hitler took over power, about 30 of these detention camps were created in jails and prisons, in addition to 70 early concentration camps. Often, these were described as work camps, reserve depots, relocation camps, prison camps, collection depots, training camps, or sub-camps. The purpose of all of them was the intimidation of the public and the elimination of any political resistance to the creation of a Nazi state.
general, the life of the camps was only a few months long, and each of them housed widely varying number of prisoners. For the most part, they held between a few dozen to a few hundred prisoners, with only the largest housing over 1,000 at any one time. The vast majority of the inmates can be categorized as German political prisoners. These were members and supporters of left-wing parties and organizations, primarily communists, but also social democrats and union members.
By the summer of 1933, there were more than 26,000 prisoners in the camp system. Primarily men, women were still the exception at that time. Everyday life in the camp was characterized by inadequate living conditions, the strict regimented daily routine, exhausted forced labor, and excessive military discipline, all in addition to the guards terrorizing and humiliating the prisoners, mostly the Jews.
In contrast to later concentration camps, the prisoners of this early phase could usually hope for release after a few years of violence and isolated incidents of murder. It was only later that the camps went from being instruments of persecution to places intentionally constructed with deadly living conditions and targeting the exterminations of specific groups, such as the Jews.
That's just awful. Awful.
I know.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. I'm Brianna Stratton.
And I'm Cory Crater.
Thanks for watching. Have a good one.